Good to have you with us here on the South African Morning. I'm Gareth Edwards. Still many unanswered questions on the fire that damaged parts of Parliament. It's now sparked concerns over the opening of the legislature and the State of the Nation address, or SONA if you prefer. Let's get reaction to what we've seen in the last 24 hours. Cosatu Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks. Matthew, good morning to you. All the best to you and yours for the year ahead. Your initial reaction when you saw Parliament on fire yesterday?
Sure. No, good morning. Thanks. And yeah, best wishes, Gareth, and to you and the listeners. I think for us it's quite a disappointing way to start the year. We've had a very difficult 2 years. Parliament belongs to South Africa. It's a symbolism of our democracy. So this is quite disheartening. I think we must be grateful that no one was injured or killed during this horrendous fire. But a lot of questions do need to be asked. We had a fire at Parliament a year ago, and a detailed report with recommendations, with indications of worrying failures in Parliament to meet its occupational health and safety requirements as per legislation was highlighted in that report. So I think we really need to hear from Parliament what exactly was done in that report, what did they do to address the shortcomings, because the extent of the fire doesn't make sense in many regards. We're already hearing reports at its initial stages about some fire extinguishers being turned off, etc., some sprinklers having been disarmed. And you know, these are equipment, these are tools, and if they're not maintained like any other tools, they will not work when the need comes to arise. So I think there needs to be a lot of answered questions here. Equally, though, I think, Gareth, it's critical that this does not disrupt the work of Parliament, the State of the Nation address. And I think in that regard, we might actually be a little bit fortunate that Parliament has been working throughout this past 2 years during the pandemic. It's been working virtually. So I think we're quite fortunate in that regard that the work of Parliament can continue, because that is critical to passing the budget, passing laws, providing oversight to government, trying to improve the lives of workers and of ordinary people. So I think in that regard, we hope it will continue as normal. We should appreciate the offer by the Mayor of Cape Town to assist Parliament with providing with alternative facilities during this time. But I think we also need to see Parliament and the Department of Public Works, which maintains the facilities at Parliament, to really come with a very urgent, rapid plan to rebuild Parliament, to address the damages and to ensure there were members of Parliament, when the staff at Parliament, when the Cabinet, the public, the President return to Parliament, that they can do so knowing that they are safe and sound.
In the view of Cosatu, Matthew, who is ultimately responsible here? Speaker of Parliament, Minister of Public Works, where would you square the blame for this? Someone has to answer, someone has to take the blame for this. Where would you believe that to be?
Sure, look, it'll be three groups of people. One is the management of Parliament. The manager was tasked to ensure the well-being, the safety of Parliament. Of course, politically, the responsibility does lie with the Speaker, the presiding officers of Parliament, with the political authorities. And they must be held accountable when their institution, which is Parliament in this case, is found wanting. Because these are legal requirements. You have about 1,400 staff members who work at Parliament, and Parliament is an employer, has the obligation legally to ensure they can work in a safe and sound premise, a workplace which will not pose the risk to their life. So yes, the management of Parliament, the presiding officer of Parliament, and of course also as well the Public Works Department and the Minister of Public Works. They have to be held accountable. And as what is worse, Gareth, is that this happened a year ago. So what was done in that report since that time? What did they do since that time to ensure Parliament is safe? Because it does not make sense in the 21st century with all the resources that this could have happened.
Let's talk about resources, actually. I'm actually glad you brought up the term of resources. Nahawu coming out. I'm just curious to get to the workers' perspective on this. Hearing reports that over December, weekend workers weren't there because of budgets. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing, that a national key point as important as Parliament didn't have workers there on the weekend because of a simple situation, because of not enough budget. What's Cosatu's view on that?
We would agree with Nahawu 100%. It makes no sense, and now we're paying the consequence for it. A little bit of overtime is not going to break Parliament. It's a small amount of a few thousand rands. Doesn't make sense. They could have found a way, and they should have done it, because the staff who they had on duty are the police officers who secured the gates, the facilities, etc. But they're not in charge of securing the internal parts of Parliament. That's the role of the parliamentary protection officers. So it really is quite damning. It's something that we, as Cosatu and our affiliates like Nahawu and Pop Crew and Denosa and many others have been raising, that at times government, in this case Parliament, have been cutting the budgets too close to the bone, and there's a consequence to that. If you neglect the integrity of your facilities, We're putting them in danger of serious damage and destruction, and sadly now we're paying the consequence to that. And again, there was reports yesterday, and we have to wait for all the reports to be investigated thoroughly. It's speculation stage still. But there was reports yesterday of a person being arrested who having broken into Parliament. And it's just quite unbelievable. So again, there's a need for management to be held accountable. If there was a shortage of budgets, why couldn't they simply have reprioritized? Parliament managed to save a lot of money last year by reducing travelling domestically and overseas because of the move to a virtual Parliament. Again, it shouldn't have been difficult to find the money.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it was all that much money, so that's one of the big questions. The other, Matthew, has been this discussion on social media about, and I personally feel it was too soon to have this discussion, to have this kind of commentary, but let me ask you and get your thoughts anyway. A move of Parliament away from Cape Town. What did you make of that sort of commentary on the go yesterday?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's, as you're saying, it's best to avoid bringing politics into the situation. It's an emotional situation. I think we are fortunate that with COVID-19, that Parliament has been able to move virtually. So that's actually been an unintended benefit of Parliament during this pandemic. I think right now that it's actually resolved the issue to a large extent of where you locate Parliament, because right now parliamentary sittings, portfolio committee meetings, public hearings have all been virtual, which has actually been a benefit to democracy, that one could be sitting in Thohoyandou or Gofengwaba and participating in a public hearing in Parliament because it's virtual. Wherever you're going to locate Parliament, whether it's in Cape Town, whether it's in Gauteng, whether it's in Bloemfontein, wherever you want to locate it, is always going to be close to some people and to be far from other people. Of course, there is also a significant issue of cost as well. But I think for us, that's the academic, a secondary issue. What's critical right now is to get Parliament moving, to fix the damage, to assess what caused it, and to learn from the lessons and make sure that active actions are taken, but to make sure Parliament is able to continue to work, to provide oversight, to pass laws, to improve the lives of ordinary workers and citizens. Political debates for us are really not helpful at this point in time.
Let me bring the conversation back to workers and workers' safety and workers' rights then. Earlier, Matthew, we spoke about the lack of budget. There should have been budget to have workers there. Also concerns raised about the safety of workers at Parliament. Again, I understand this is coming off the back of a conversation with Nehawu, but since I do have you, when an organisation at Cosatu sees an incident like this, do you have the same kind of thought process for safety of workers? I'm sure you do.
Yes, and I think it must be a lesson for all of us, not just for Parliament itself, but for all workplaces across the country. Are we in compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which requires all employers, be it Parliament, be it a restaurant, be it a petrol station or a farm, have we put in place the health and safety measures to make sure that our workers, that our customers, the public are safe at our workplaces? And to be honest, I think if Parliament can be found wanting in this regard, I'm sure that 90% of our workplaces will be found wanting. It's fine to have a sprinkler, but if you don't maintain it, it's not going to work when you need it to work. Same thing with the fire alarm, same thing with your fire extinguishers. What is our evacuation plan? Do we have health and safety reps? And I'm sure, again, most of us will be found wanting. So I think for us, if we want to have a positive lesson out of this, a learning moment as a country, let us make sure that all of our workplaces, as we reopen in the next few days, are safe for our workers, are safe for our members of the public, and that we're able to make sure we are in compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And to be honest, all too often we fail in that regard, and this is something I think for all of us, irrespective of where we work, we need to pay serious attention to.
We can see how quickly it can go wrong as well. Matthew Parks, Parliamentary Coordinator for Cosatu, thanks very much for weighing in this morning, and thank you for your time here on the South African Morning.